How do you make a documentary for class? Turns out it's not all that different from making a regular video that you might have made for a school or class project before, but there are some special differences of a documentary that I'm going to go over in this video. A documentary is a piece of nonfiction film that is meant to showcase a problem or tell a story about a particular real-life person or events. But if you're making a documentary for a class, you want to first think about some of the elements of a documentary, what you might want to include in it, how to plan, how to film, the production of the documentary, and any publication of the documentary, especially if you're going to share it with a teacher. Now, if you're in film school or college level filmmaking class, there might be some more in-depth videos that you want to watch, but this video is intended for beginners who've never made a documentary before. And I do also have several other videos talking about how to make videos for class projects and how to edit videos for class, so be sure to check those out if you need a refresher in any of those skills. Before you even get started, think about if a documentary is the best medium to display your knowledge for your class project. Remember, a documentary is not the same as a research paper where you do a lot of telling and citing sources along the way. A documentary can share similar information, but you're going to have to show it a lot of the time instead of just telling or writing out descriptive language. Let's talk about main elements of a documentary. One of the core elements of a documentary is going to be the interviews of some of your subjects. So before you make a documentary, think about who you might want to interview or include in the film. You also want to think about any B-roll or background footage that you're going to include. And you want a lot of this because you want to be able to show your story, not just talk about it or have to narrate over everything. So get establishing shots when you go to locations, and make sure you plan for any other things that you might want to film, including action. These could be reenactments of actual events or filming things on location to show something in your story. You can also use sourced footage from archives or historical images, but be thinking about things that you can use and that you have the permission to use in your documentary before you even start in the planning stage. Other elements that you can include in a documentary, if you don't have the footage to show it, include narration, which you might want to write a script for beforehand, text that you can display on the screen, any sort of graphics or animation that you want to create, and this can get a little bit challenging, so make sure that you know how to create or make these before you go too deep in planning them. And of course, a documentary, even though it is a piece of nonfiction, does want to tell a story or showcase a problem with maybe potential solutions. So be thinking about an arc for your documentary and the structure of it before you even get started with filming. If you've never made a documentary before, be sure to check out a few other documentaries so you can pick up on styles that you like or things that you might want to include in yours. There's plenty of documentaries on YouTube or on Netflix that you can check out. But there are differences between different types of documentaries. A nature documentary is going to be a little bit different from a true crime documentary, so be sure you watch a few of these and get some ideas for yours before you get started. Next, you really want to research your topic, especially if it's for class, and make sure you narrow down your ideas. Because your documentary is probably just going to be a short piece of film, you can't include everything or help to solve all the world's problems by showcasing your subjects on film. So you want to narrow down the topic to something very specific, and the more specific and in-depth that you can get, the better material you'll have to film for your documentary. You may not know what your interviewees are going to say exactly, but you can still plan out what you plan to film in something called a storyboard, where you get the shots and sort of ideas that you want in order. You can easily sketch this out on paper, even if you're not a good artist. You can also script and do a bullet point outline instead of an actual illustrated storyboard. You can also just create a list of all the shots or ideas that you want to showcase in the documentary. And you can always move these around after you're done filming or during editing, and you can always go back and add more, but it's a good idea to always start with a plan so that you don't get bogged down with all the things that you need to film. Again, storyboards can be really simple and easy, including doing these on sticky notes with stick figures so you can easily move them around. Now, when you get to filming, there's a few things that you want to make sure that you pay attention to while you're doing your filming. You don't have to purchase a fancy camera, especially if this is for a school project. You can easily film a documentary on your phone or on somebody else's phone, but you probably want to have something that's a little bit more movable than a webcam, since you might be going on site to locations to film things. You want to make sure your audio is a good quality. I'm not using the fanciest audio in the world, but I do have a microphone that's attached to my phone right now so you can hear me clearly. If you're filming outside, you want to make sure that you're talking or doing interviews when there's no large trucks going by or loud noises in the background. So try to find a quiet environment or an area that's good for sound, like a room with carpet, so that you don't have too echoey of audio while you're filming or recording. Lighting is also really important. Sometimes outside can be a really good option for filming documentaries, but lighting does make a huge difference to the viewer when you're watching a video. If you do have the ability to go on location, make sure you get lots of B-roll before and after interviews of places that you're doing your interviews, or any action shots or things things that might establish the scene or tell your story a little bit more clearly. Again, the more you can show and the less that you can say, the stronger your documentary will be. If you're using real people in your documentary, you do want to make sure you have permission to showcase them and what they say in your film. Especially if these people are under 18, you want to make sure you get written permission from them. And if you don't have their permission, you want to make sure you cut those parts out or find workarounds like blurring faces if need be, or highlighting something different in your video. And as you're doing interviews, make sure you test both the audio quality of your interviewee and the camera before and after, because you don't want to have to go back and ask the interviewee to record again if there was a mistake with the technology. If you're not able to go out and about or actually do interviews, you can still make a pretty quality documentary by sourcing images from other places or using stock footage or historical images, which we'll talk about in a moment. It's pretty standard to have interviews and documentaries where the interviewee is not looking at the camera, instead they're looking at the person who's asking the questions in the background. So make sure you position your camera a little bit to the side instead of straight on like this. Remember, making a documentary does require some editing, so it's not for filmmaking beginners. You do want to have a little bit of experience with editing software, whether that's iMovie on your phone or on your computer or a movie maker tool that you find. There's lots of great editing software out there that you can use for free, but make sure you're using something that you're comfortable with and you know the limitations of before you get started. You may be tempted to include everything that you filmed in your documentary, but you want to cut out anything that does not improve the storytelling or the overall points that you want to get across in your documentary. When in doubt, cut it out. As you're working, be sure you back up your footage and you save lots so that you don't lose all of your hard work as you're going through and doing the editing. Sometimes editing can be the longest part of the documentary making process. If you want to do any narration over your documentary, this is when it would come in, and you can either record that through your computer or through your phone. A really easy way to do that is just to get the MP3 voice recorder on your phone and record that way and then send it to your editing software. If you want to use any music, just make sure it's not distracting and it's not too loud to cover up important parts of the documentary. But sometimes a great shot accompanied by music can make a really powerful part of a documentary with no other audio at all. As you're producing your documentary, you may need other resources and other footage to include. You want to make sure you're using videos and images that you have permission to use. So here are some of my favorite sites for going to find stock footage or images or graphics for my videos. Pixabay, Unsplash, Pexels, and Cover all have great images and videos without needing to get permission from the original author. Archive.org can be a good place to search for things that are within the public domain that you can use or remix for your documentary. Wikimedia Commons also has resources like this, but make sure you pay attention to the type of license on the image on both of these sites. Finally, YouTube Audio Library is a great place to start if you want to find some background music for your documentary to include. Finally, publishing your documentary is going to be really important because you want to be able to share it with your teacher or your audience somehow. So putting it somewhere accessible on the internet is going to be really important. If you want to make it private to yourself, Google Drive is a nice place to start. You can also easily share to YouTube and make a video private or unlisted and only share with people who have the link. And people who are interested in more high quality video making may put their videos on Vimeo. Usually people who put their videos on Vimeo are putting out really high definition videos and they want to make sure the quality stays. As you publish your video, you want to make sure in the description or in the credits that you are giving credit to all the people and places that have helped you along the way of production. So anyone on your team, anyone who's provided resources for you or has allowed you to film, and any people that appear in your documentary, you want to make sure you credit them and cite any sources that you might have used. Hopefully these things have been helpful for you as you're planning your documentary that you're going to make for class. Let me know what other questions you have about creating videos for class in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Give this video a like if it's been helpful, and I'll see you later.